Don't worry, little man. Foxy will always be with you. With a name like Foxy, you would think I was a girl. Hello? Hello? Hey, I wanted to leave a voicemail for you to help you understand a few things about the animatronics you're holding for us. First of all of them are recreated from the original diner and pizzeria from the 80s. Retro, right? I guess there was a myth about these characters who killed children? They are making a fright house, I guess, to make some money off these old ghost stories. Oh, and before I forget, that disgusting old animatronic tattered all over the ground that we brought you is not to be touched. I guess it was a very faulty, closed all the time with some water or something like that. They called it a spring Bonnie suit. Let me impress you with all the skills I have. Wow. But stay away from that suit though, okay? Other than that, we will come grab them all tomorrow at 6 a.m. Don't wear purple either. For some reason, the animatronics don't like that color. Oh yeah, Foxy is annoying. He will want to talk to you the whole time and not leave your side. Sorry for that.
I always come back.
Hello? Let's go somewhere more private. So I can eat you.
Maybe if you're lucky, you can join our band, little one. If I get jump scared, you get jump scared.
Arg, you never stood a chance.
Hey, how's it going, my friends? This is Nick from the Nerd Frenzy Podcast. Today, the indie horror Five Nights at Freddy's. We have the pleasure of having this wonderful discussion with Kaden Collard, everyone. Hey buddy, how have you been?
Hello, Nick. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've been pretty good.
Yeah.
It's been a while since we've done this. Mortal Kombat.
And there's the funny thing about that, my friend, is immediately it's very obvious that you're just ready to go. You have so much information, and you're one of those people. You just want to. You're kind of like me. You just want to just put it all out there, and you want to give the audience everything, and just not just this little part thing. So. You're always fun to talk to about that anyways. We can just talk about anything. But you completely caught me off guard with Mortal Kombat and just the what you knew and everything and how you knew it. I've been playing the game since I was like 9 years old back in 94 or something like that when the second game came out. And so I've had like many years of love for these games that I've actually just been able to actually play through the games. But you did this thing where you just played through them really quickly, and you had the same kind of knowledge. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So when you told me you want to do
Yeah.
Five Nights at Freddy's, I played the first game and the fourth game when they came out, so I knew a little bit about it. And I haven't got to do anything like horror yet in this for the most part. So
Yeah.
I did some research, played some games. I spent, as I
Yeah.
told you, more hours on research for this podcast episode than probably
Then yeah,
all of
podcast.
mine combined. So it was just something that it was a lot of fun to do because I got into the lore, and I kind of wanted to talk about with you. You're the expert on the games. I wanted to kind of talk a little, very briefly on the games themselves, and then I wanted to discuss a good bulk of the time talking
The lore.
about the lore.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
All right, I got a question for you, Nick.
Talk to me, Goose.
What is your favorite animatronic? I know this, and I don't think the people do.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of good ones, by the way. They're they're
Oh,
really.
yeah.
I'm a big fan of all of them, but uh, obviously the main antagonist, William Afton, he's the villain of the story. He's the Freddy Krueger of this awesome story we get to talk about soon. And he was in a Bonnie suit that ended up being called Springtrap because of the fact that there was a spring trap inside it that he could get inside. And we'll talk about that later. But he's just the idea that he's kind of this zombie, but also a dead person, but zombie too, is kind of just a unique thing. And then his goal after what we talk about soon is just to be just this evil person, evil entity. It's a great story, and it's very cringy because the story is how of pretty much kids getting killed by Chuck E. Cheese like animatronics. So
It's yeah, most of the story.
yeah, if you need nothing else from this whole podcast, everyone,
Yeah, you can stop watching now.
right, children are going to be getting
Oh.
killed in this
Yeah.
story, in this game, little indie game by a man named Scott Coffin, which will definitely break him down as well too. Just a wonderful gentleman who I have a lot of amazing things to talk about with.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's start at the very first game, which came out in 2014, Mr. Caden, and that was Five Nights at Freddy's. Go ahead and tell me just what you kind of the feeling you got when you first played it or heard about it or anything.
Okay, so the day I started got into FNaF was the day one of my brother's best friends came. They were playing it, and I started playing it, and I really liked it. So I got into the lore. Realized, wow, it's like 2 years worth of lore down the drain. I've been studying all these games for 3 years now. The first game, I would say, was definitely my second favorite game. It was really good. I had a really good time playing it. Wasn't, too scary to the point where I couldn't play it, just hiding under my covers the second I played. But yeah, I love the game, and he started a whole franchise, so this is definitely a really good game.
Oh, absolutely. And the cool thing about this game, which I told you, I might certainly have disagreements in terms of like how the way I like to play video games. Typically, I don't like to stay in the same areas. And I guess I was always kind of too much of a monkey to really be able to just take a lot of those strategy kind of games seriously because I would
Yeah.
prefer just maybe just running around and shooting things up or whatnot. And so there were certain games that I was able to do that with, like Silent Hill and Resident Evil, but they also had enough of different qualities to allow me to kind of just not feel so claustrophobic, which would probably be considered a good game and a good reason that this is a good thing for a lot of people who play it. But there are so many things with the idea that there's something coming at you, and the only way to stop it is by like closing a door or flashing a light or pressing a button or something like that. And it's intimidating because you have to like start hearing the sounds, start understanding the moans and the scratches and it just this game offers you like a little kind of like a puzzle way that to survive for 5 nights, and each time it gets harder and harder and harder, and you have to do it correctly or else one of these animatronics jumps out and gets you, and it's very intimidating. And especially for just the community was not ready for this game. It just kind of came out and then just caught everyone off guard. And it's this really cool guy who already made hundreds of little indie games that didn't do anything special, and then he made this one because he kept on being told that a lot of his other games had a certain kind of scary kind of charm to it, but they weren't supposed to be scary games. So he decided to go ahead and use that to his advantage. And when he made this game, it just completely got everyone on board. You downloaded it on, like, I think it was Steam or something like that, and everyone just was like, oh, God, word of mouth came. This game that came from nowhere is, play it. And then I remember I was in the Navy, and I was in the hospital in Illinois working there, and someone was playing it, and it completely caught our little area off guard, and it became like the theme of topic for weeks because of it. And it was just a lot of fun, and we started like jump scaring each other, and it was a certain kind of pop culture thing that you're like, oh, this game is impressive. And then the cool thing about it is they kept on making more and more quickly.
Yeah, like, I would say the first game was definitely the easiest for everybody, because there was like a little hack that you could do. So you would twist, press the light, and if they went there, you'd twist over here, press the light, twist over here, twist, and keep on twisting and pressing the light until you found somebody, and you'd shut the door. Then you'd wait for them to leave, and you'd push button, push button, push button. So, yeah. I'd say FNaF 1 is definitely the game that started the franchise, so it's got to be good.
Yep.
But I quite liked it. I liked it a ton, actually.
A lot of people, and not even just because it's the first one, but a lot of people still think it just is technically the scariest game in terms of just, and they did try. Obviously, we'll talk about that soon with 4, but they did try to actually like really change the animatronic look and the idea behind it. But yeah, typically a lot of people would say the first one's still maybe the scariest one.
How is the first one the scariest to them?
I guess it was just the certain way the grit and everything was, and then a lot of people felt like maybe they try to up it more or change the appearance a little bit to make it. But a lot of people just say, well, the first one's the aesthetic of it had the best look to it. And I've talked to you about this a lot too, but I've always felt like for me the best one was 3 because I always liked the idea of like a little fright house anyways, and then when you find out the lore behind why it's a fright house, it's like, well, that's kind of like a mockery in itself because it actually is a fright house.
Yeah. Okay, if you could, I'm going to do this with every game we go on today. If you could rate this game 1 to 10, what would you rate it, Nicholas?
Like compared to each other or like compared to the best games of all time? What do you mean exactly?
Just rate it how you like to play it, not compared to anything. Just based off of you.
This was a little bit around the time, a little bit probably after like a year or two, where like Slender Man came out, and I liked that concept because you got there's a big old open area, and you had to go find these specific little check marks, like little pictures, and then it would kind of give you clues, but then it'd make Slender Man get like closer and like make him harder to get to you, and I liked that idea because it was strategic. But it was also scary because it was a real world, and so these kind of games, when you like I said, when you're just static right there, you're just like moving back and forth. It does something specific for a lot of people. To me, I just don't typically play games like that because of the fact that I like to be moving around. I like to, just really go for it. But one thing I liked about this was it actually did scare me. And yes, they're jump scares, but the reason why it's scary is because you're hearing the sounds, you're looking on the camera, you're seeing them moving around, and they look at you 1 second, and they're not looking at you. There's a lot of these different elements that really just like it's really good in the dark, so you can't see it very well. You can't tell like is that them or maybe not. And that whole atmosphere it builds, and then you freak out. And I'd imagine that the virtual reality experience when you're sitting in there is awesome.
That game. I played it. It is so. Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm getting that from you guys. I don't know if you knew that. I'm getting that from you guys, so I get to play it soon too. I haven't got to try it yet, but just the idea of knowing that you're in this office, you don't see anything. I don't see my house, my beautiful house, even though I'm in my office right now. But it's a unique experience because I did the Star Wars one with you guys, and I just felt like, wow, I understand the appeal of this. But a lot of people say that the first one is the best, and then maybe even the second one too. And then they kind of and then like the third one's pretty good as well. And then it kind of goes downhill from there. But I say they all have their ups and downs.
It's not a 1 through 10. I need a.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say an 8 probably.
That's standard for that Star game. That's pretty good.
Yeah. What do you think, sir?
I'm gonna give it an 8. Yeah, I
Okay,
agree with you.
perfect. So let's go ahead and start to FNaF 2, which is, by the way, everyone, FNaF is what's
Five
kind of
Nights at
short for
Freddy's.
Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's kind of silly, but when you start going into everything, reading into it, you hear that term FNaF all the time, and then eventually it's just part of your lingo, and it's kind of like, oh Lord. But
Yeah.
so we're gonna go to the Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and that this game came out like 3 months later, and it was something.
Yeah.
It was something that he just like he kind of understood how the models worked. That what he kind of used the same ones, and then kind of did some refreshing things, and he changed it. And this was actually considered to be a prequel that would have came out. Because the first one came out, oddly enough, and we'll talk about all this later on, it'll make sense, but the first one came out in 1993, and this one would have came out in 1987. So, and you'll be hearing things about like the bite of 87, the bite of 83. There's a lot of fun little things we'll talk about, but yeah, pretty much two's kind of, to me, felt kind of just somewhat the same feeling as one, but just with more animatronics and more a little bit more lore. Not really too much, because the first two didn't really have too much. It was just more about Phone Guy, which is the genius, of course, Scott Coffin, who does the voice of that. But Phone Guy, which is kind of the guy who fills us in through the day, and he's pretty much just telling us little snips of what's going on in the story, and it's kind of interesting, and it's kind of like deranged. It's just a lot of fun, and throughout the night you get a new message from him. He's like telling you what's going on to the story, and two kind of just felt a little bit the same as one did for me. What do you think, bud?
You thought 1 and 2. Okay. I'd say 1. Obviously, you're going in there with Jeremy Fitz. You know, he gets paid minimum wage, which is a terrible job for that. But these animatronics, that what Scott Kaufman did, he redid them. So he left in the original ones, which I like that. He all the games had original ones except for Security Breach, which we'll get into that in a little bit. But at the last Night 7, you obviously know Michael Afton takes his place. And then, you just beat the game. There's a ton more lore to that game than
Yes,
one.
Michael Afton is also an important character. We'll discuss him as well later.
Yeah.
But
What do you think about it, Nick?
I thought it was probably a 7.
A 7? Okay, so 2 is my favorite game, so I'm
Okay.
gonna give that a good old 10 out of 10 right there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Like I said, I guess the reason why I say it was a 7, and like I said, it's my gripe. I'm not part of that. The gaming itself is not really my shtick. It's the gameplay is more, like I said, maybe your shtick. But I appreciate the lore and appreciate the pretty much just the atmosphere and the dark stuff going on. I like that stuff. But the gameplay itself never really necessarily satisfied me as much. But I still enjoyed the game. So 2 pretty much changed a little bit of like you wear a mask to hide yourself from
Like,
the animatronics coming to you, and it was kind of a different feel. But I didn't find it as scary as I did whenever you were in that first room trying to keep the door shut and whatnot. So for that, I had to drop it 1, and I give it a 7. I'm sorry. I know it's your favorite, and I appreciate that.
anyway, I'd say 2 is a tad bit more. I'd say 1 is still more scarier. Just because for this, people say it's the scariest game because there's no doors. There's no doors to shut manually.
Hmm.
I would say this is my favorite game because of its mechanics. It had so many mechanics, it was such a big upgrade from 2, or upgrade from 1. Just because you had so many more mechanics, you had the mask, the light, the checking the vent, checking the cameras with the light, stuff like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I get what you're saying. Okay, let's go ahead and continue on to Five Nights at Freddy's 3, which would be, oddly enough, set in 2023, so it's kind of a big old like 30 plus year jump. And this one right here was this was after the lore and everything, which we'll talk about later. Pretty much the other ones got burned down and whatnot, and this is a new one that they were going to actually like go off of the myth of this story, even though it's a true story. They were going off it like it wasn't. It was just like this really cool idea and fun little thing. So they brought these animatronics back, and the soul of the evilness was still part of them. So they were still there, and it was something that was same of a little bit different, but kind of the same idea. And but there's one big difference of this one that I very much enjoy, and that is Springtrap is not only the villain, but he is the main villain, and he is the, like I said, he was the main antagonist, William Afton, and the whole story that you get with him is just this crazy, Chucky, Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, all these kind of characters, same idea, some kind of supernatural thing that makes him this just scary ass dude that just keeps on coming back.
Yeah, 'cause he always comes back.
He always comes back.
I always come back.
And so 3 was fun because it offered more of the kind of story that I started really, really engaging with, and that was Springtrap and the idea of himself, the villain himself, being caught in this animatronic and then become like infused with it and then zombifying and just getting disgusting and turn like just dead zombie that's inside of a mask. And it's just a lot of fun, and just the idea behind it makes for a very scary antagonist, and it's something that it was a lot of fun, and it's kind of more my style. Like I've always loved the whole haunted house thing. And I like how they were like taking it kind of in like oh, let's do this, but it actually was a real thing, and it was a lot of fun to kind of see the play off it. So I thought just for that this game to me would be considered a 9.
A 9? Okay, to me, I'd say this game would be considered to me. First, I want to talk something about this game. I'd say Michael Afton, like, he's so bad. He's so bad. I would just like to give this game, no offense to you, but I'm gonna have to give this game a big old dose.
What is a dose? What is that? 2?
2, yeah, uno dos.
You're really gonna give it a 2 out of 10?
I didn't like this game. I'll say that is my least favorite game out of all them all.
But it's a 2. I mean, this game can't be a 2, and that means it would be like, I don't know, playing a piece of poop, jumping up and down, and nothing else happening. I don't get it. There's a lot of.
Do you want to give me a 3 then, just to make you feel better?
If you really feel like it's a 2, you're saying that this is a garbage game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
I like the concept, and I like that it introduced William Afton, and that's basically it. It only introduced one character, which
I feel that they introduced too many anyways. They should have stuck with the same, maybe not the same 4, but they should have stuck with like 12 altogether. But they had, if you really look it up, there's like 70, and it's hard to really understand all of the different things. And I do most of it, but there's a lot. And I would personally prefer it if they were just kind of all the same, and they're just like the same 11, 12 people that were kind of the same kind of idea that Springtrap did. The rest of them did too. It would have been kind of more a unique thing, but that's just expanding on something. But I felt like the atmosphere was scarier, and the idea was scary because it was kind of like they were making fun of themselves. Like, oh yeah, let's have a haunted house, and then it actually has haunted things. And Springtrap is scary because he's after different things. The other animatronics, when you hear their lore, you kind of feel bad for them, and they don't deserve what happened to him. But Springtrap,
yeah, but no, this guy deserves. I hope he does.
Which, as we'll talk about Henry later, but he says that he opens a special place of hell It's amazing little
So sad.
audio thing that I love putting in there, and it's something that is effective. That voice acting was really good in the game too. So, but yeah, I feel like that's the thing. So I'm sorry that you say a two, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah.
So, what is the next game, sir?
That would be FNaF 4. This is yeah, I couldn't play this game. I was funny story, fun enough. This game contained a ton of lore. So my brother would be playing on his PC, correct? I would be in the bed, there's a bed right there, with my head under the covers like this, and then I'd peek out once in a while. He was doing that repeatedly. And I think this game it introduced basically this game still has a ton to do with security breach basically. Or security breach has a ton to do with this game. Like a catchphrase from FNAF 4 to the security breach. I'm pretty sure Freddy says, "I feel you are broken and I will fix you." But he didn't say I'll fix you. In FNAF 4, I think it's when you get to the sixth night and you beat it, you'll be talking with Golden Freddy. You will be, and he'll say, "I feel you're broken, and I will fix you." Kind of referencing, I can't say that. To what do you call it? Evan, which is obviously in that box as a robot, which is coming up.
Which is great. Gregory is Evan. Yeah, they're the same. And he's just a robot that was built. Yeah, which
Yeah.
that's way down the lore too. So it's something that it's like the Afton family is something you guys like. That's something that you guys need to really like hear. The Afton family, especially William, Michael, Elizabeth. Uh,
Henry.
well, not Henry's not part of the Afton family, but I'm missing one. Yeah,
Evan.
Evan, thank you. And then yeah, Henry and Henry's daughter Charlotte. Or
Yeah, we don't know what's his name, the wife's name.
yeah, she's not, and so far she's not really important to anything anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, they did the four was completely different. Four is actually set in 1983, and it goes back to pretty much like what not quite started this whole thing because we're not for sure yet, but we think it has something to do with a name later. We'll talk about Cassidy, but this is pretty
Big
much.
name, big boy name.
But yeah, but this is pretty much Evan's kind of the first one where we call the Bite of '83, and that pretty much covers this game, which is a different scary thing because all the animatronics are not animatronics anymore. They're these big old like scary looking. What would you call them? What was it?
Like razor sharp teeth. They're
Yeah,
hallucinations. They weren't real. They're hallucinations.
right. Yeah, they were, and
No.
you were in your bedroom, and this is after he got. We'll talk about, but he got bit, and he got bit. And I'll show the clip of that. He got bit. After it all happened, then you kind of you hear he's in this dream, and the dream is he's seen all these scary things. They're trying to get him in his room, in his closet, in the hallway. He has a flashlight on it, and just there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. But pretty much what's happening is he's in like a little coma, and he's dying. And it's when you find out the lore behind that, makes the whole thing kind of dark because you find out this little, like 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kid who died by animatronic and he became one of the evil spirits.
He
And
would in this game he would have been 9.
9, okay, and he became one of the evil spirits because of it, because it was one of those things that started the whole procedure and it kind of started the whole
The whole
William Afton bringing, killing kids and bringing them back to life through their spirit, not their life, but their the spirits into the
yeah.
animatronics. And it's well, not quite, but the marionette does that. But yeah, but Afton kind of finds certain things. But so yeah, we have FNAF
Yeah.
4, which goes in the past, and then what do you think the rating and stuff like that? The final thoughts on that would be.
You, you got to go first because I'm still kind of thinking of my answer.
Um, this was the game I told you I played when I first came out. I played the first game when it first came out, and then I played the fourth game when it first came out. And the fourth game was hard for me to play too, just because it was scaring me. And I was, a 28-year-old man in the Navy, so it's just, it shows kind of the beautifulness of that. So for that reason, I would give it an 8.
I give it a 9. I like this game a lot.
I was hoping you were gonna say that because if you actually had like problems when you're laying on the bed, like you were discussing earlier, to the point where it was actually scaring you, then you can't call that game like a 5 or 4. You'd say, no, the game scared me. It did its job. I will say that's a 9. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like saying, oh, Freddy Krueger's not scary, but I've been having nightmares about him for the last 7 years. Oh. Okay. So after FNaF 4, my friend, what was the next game that was made?
This would be Sister Location, I believe.
Sister Location, and this one came out. It would have been what year would this came out?
2016?
What's that?
It would have came out in 2016.
It came out 2016, and I think it was supposed to be out. The way it was supposed to be like played was like 1991 or two or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit before the first Five Nights at Freddy's, and this is where we get a couple new characters and one little baby that I'm sure you're a fan of was made, and she's now part of the lore, and she's really cool. And
Big fan.
tell me about her.
Okay, so Ballora, the spirit inside, not Ballora, Baby, the spirit inside of Baby is Elizabeth Afton, which it's not right now currently, but we'll get into that when we get into Security Breach. Okay, and I think the baby was meant to kill Elizabeth by, I'm pretty sure, then Michael. For sure, not Michael, William Afton designed Baby. And I remember you're just sitting, you're Elizabeth Afton, you're just walking up, you're playing the minigame, and her stomach, like, sends out an ice cream cone. And you take the ice cream cone and then replace it with like a scooper.
Yeah, she's cool.
You, and then and we hear your screams, and that's about it for Baby for this game.
Yeah,
There's a lot
yeah,
more.
yeah. Baby, literally pulled in her body, and then like I guess ate her or killed her, and then the baby had no idea what was happening. She was programmed to not understand it. She's like, why did I hear I heard like crying for a moment, but then I didn't hear anything after a while.
My stomach opened, and there was ice cream. I couldn't move, at least, not until she stepped closer. There was screaming for a moment, but only for a moment.
And it's kind of just like, oh geez, you're like just under this little spell, and it was really disturbing. But and then of course her spirit was bonded to that and all that kind of stuff, so it made it much more like dark and twisted. But the game and everything, did you enjoy the game as much as the others?
Okay, so I'm gonna say a little bit before I answer that question. I would say this introduced one of my favorite animatronic, Funtime Freddy. He is just so cool. The voice actor for it I love. I think it's like Jeff Kennett or something. I forgot his name. But he also does Glamrock Freddy's Sun, Moon, and all of that, which we'll get to in Security Breach. But I would have to give this game out of 10. This is my second favorite game, so I'm gonna give it a 9.5.
Jeez, okay.
I like this game. I like I said with 2, it introduced a lot of mechanics, like the running, the like the half ultimate custom night, where you do like Bear's Attack and stuff like that. And I at least loved the mechanics of this game.
Cool. And I will give it an 8.5, mainly because I liked the lore, a lot of it too. It added a lot more of the story that I enjoyed. These little mini games that the little Atari-like games that they put in the games too when you die, or certain little mini games you have to defeat, and if you do correctly, you get more story. And I like how how Scott Coffin puts these little little mind games and stuff in there for you to get more of the story, but you have to complete it correctly. It's a great way for him to sell his product, and it's a great way for us to be part of this awesome community of
Yeah.
theories and whatnot. And it allows us to keep on being interested. It's very intelligent move on his part. But yeah, I like the
Yeah.
idea. I like the story. They add more to the story, and the game it allowed you to move around a little bit more too. So I thought that was
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, I would give that probably
Eight.
8.5. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
perfect.
Now time for six. Six, round six.
Hmm.
And moving back. All right. So this game would be simulator,
Yeah,
correct?
pizza simulator. Yes, sir.
Alright. Okay. I'm gonna say a few things. Okay. I thought. Okay, and then real quick, I'm just gonna give my ratings now. This game was easily up there with FNaF 2. I'm gonna give this game a 9.5 also. Like I said, the mechanics of this game were great. Like, they're shocking. When you first did it, you could build your own restaurant. I say restaurant, weird, sorry. And then you could build it, and based on that, you get avenue, like, basically down and up. But this one was good. Oh, in 6, we forgot to talk about Michael Afton's, scoop.
Well, we don't need to yet because we're not really there yet.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah. So,
Okay, but yeah.
Pizza Simulator. This game, it's been put out there for like 2023 as well. So it's kind of around the same time as
Three?
yep, S3 is. So they all kind of connect, of course. But I would give it an 8. I didn't play it as much. This is one of those I kind of just more like watched on YouTube, and it seemed fun, but I never actually played it. But yeah, I know maybe a mistake, but it seemed interesting, and I enjoyed the story, so I'll give it an 8. So uh,
Eight?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Next one.
This would be FNaF. Custom Night. Custom Night, indeed.
Uh,
Okay.
cool thing about Custom Night is it's about William Afton pretty much in hell, reliving all these things that his poor people had to deal with. So he has to actually go against the animatronics himself over and over again, no matter what, and they just keep on coming at. So I like that idea behind it. It was kind of showing that he's kind of like Freddy, who's in hell and just getting like just completely punched kind of thing. And so that was a fun little aspect of it. I like the idea that they brought literally every single character and you could just have fun little. You could set difficulties and whatnot, and put the which characters you want in there, and then you earn certain things. So I like these kind of games. I would give it an 8.5.
8.5. Alright, I'm gonna give a little TDT here. Okay, so this game obviously introduced 50. So it's like, 50 new mechanics, which I love mechanics. But one downside to this game, it just like it had a lot of lore to it, but not enough. And I like lore more than the actual game. I like the game, but I would say
That's a good point. There almost was no lore. There were just little snippets.
I'd say this game to me, this is the lowest one you're gonna hear for. No, the second lowest one you're gonna hear.
Okay, 2 is stupidly low.
I didn't like 3. I'm sorry. I didn't like 3.
A lot of people didn't. In fact, Scott himself said that he felt like 3 was kind of a letdown in a certain way.
Yeah.
So I get it. I'm just teasing you, but a 2, I think that's a little far fetched. If you want to say like a 5 or 6, sure, but a 2, you rascal.
Okay. I'm gonna move it up to a 4 just for you.
All right, whatever you want to do.
Okay. So I got a question here. Are we gonna talk about Help Wanted, or are we just gonna go to Security Reach?
Help One doesn't really do anything. It just kind of was a quick little thing.
Okay, just real quick for refresher for them. All Help Wanted did was introduce a new character, Vanny. All right.
Yes, Fanny, and she's important, and we'll talk about her soon too. And it did kind of allow for you to do everything, and like you got to play the first 3 games in a VR experience, and you got to play all these little mini games.
Yeah.
So it's actually a fun game. In fact, just quickly, I would just say I'd probably give it an 8, just because of the idea that there's like many different options for you to earn, and many different challenges for you to try to do, and I thought it was refreshing in some kind of way.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna give this game. a 7.5.
Okay, yeah, that's respectable.
Eh,
So,
Off to 9.
yeah,
Big security breach.
yeah. So far, this came out a few months ago, and is kind of it's the last game at the moment. So, pretty much we get a lot of information. Like as you said a minute ago, Kaden. This one connects deeply with 4. It talks about Evan. You pretty much, and it's a theory. I hate people do that. Like, oh, really? You do the quotes, but I just did it. It's a theory right at this moment that Gregory and Evan are not the same people, but it's pretty much been proven by a lot of the best theorists, including Matt and uh,
Other one.
yeah, it's pretty much game theorists, and yeah, there's a couple other people that have came up with a lot of good ideas because they've connected all the puzzles and whatnot, and they got all these answers and whatnot, and that's how you and I know this much information in the first place, Caden. Because I know for sure that I'm not gifted enough to pick up all these myself. I probably would have got like a quarter of it myself. So I appreciate them digging and stuff, and they made the lore available because of their understanding of the mind games and the little way that Scott Coffin would put these little things in there that you could, if you solved them, you got more of the story and stuff. So it was awesome. And Security Breach kind of throws a whole lot at you. It kind of shows more of Vanny, the character, and it destroys the characters that we kind of all know and kind of brings them back in a very glam rock kind of way, like a David Bowie sort of way. And it was like very 80s and neon and colorful and kind of different in terms of not a Five Nights at Freddy's game in some ways. And then you got to walk around. It was an open world. It was a big game, a lot going on, but there were a lot of bugs, and probably I think there still is. But for the most part, it was a different experience, and it actually caused a huge divide. A lot of these games cause a huge divide, but this one caused a really big divide with the community because a lot of people felt like it wasn't Five Nights at Freddy's.
Yeah, right. Okay, so I'd say, I'm gonna talk about Gregory, okay, Evan Afton, for a second here. Okay, so it is been proven that they're the same people. They have, first of all, if you load, first time you even see Grandma Freddy, he says, oh yeah, there's no file on you yet. And he says, oh, my name's, Gregory, yeah, that's it. Sort of that. And if you go back to an iconic catchphrase, which I said then from 4, I feel you're broken in this game. I said in the last 4 games, or in 4, obviously said that. And yeah, I liked that they introduced him back. I liked that they introduced all the Michael characters. Like, obviously, Grandma Freddy is Michael Afton protecting his brother, the thing he couldn't do, I guess I don't really know. I guess, years ago, technically. So, yeah, I just feel like this game introduced a lot of the Aftons. Obviously, I'm assuming Vanessa is Elizabeth, just because, like, the green, if you get the good ending, she has the green eyes, the blonde hair, so I'm assuming it's the spirit inside of Vanessa. But in, what do you call it? What's its name? Vanny. In Vanny, it's a glitch trap version. It's just like an override, basically. If you play the Princess Quest games, it'll kind of just show you that it's her. And what do you call it? Golden Freddy, our favorite Golden Bear, of course, is in this game. It's some people, especially Matt Pat, said that this game is, or I'd say the Princess Quest game is, what do you call it? The actual princess is Cassidy. And we don't really know how Cassidy died. It was never on the files. It was never on the first 5 kids that died. It was never in FNaF 2, never in FNaF 3. The only time we really hear his name is in this one, and I'm assuming in FNaF 2, I think. Oh, and in FNaF Ultimate Custom Night, if you get lucky, some nights you'll hear Cassidy laughing. It'll show a picture of Cassidy like fade over your screen. But yeah, that's what I think the lore is of this game. And I also think that, what do you call it? Do you know the room behind Sun and Moon, like the sis location? And that's it, like the sis location in Security Breach, that hidden room.
Yeah, you go underneath that little hole, like the thing that you see, and it's like, yeah, and then you get this little old, like security looking room, right?
Yeah. I think some people say Gregory, aka Evan,
Oh,
um,
live there, yeah, and
lived
that's
there, or he lived in that room with the post office
yeah.
and stuff like that.
But yeah,
But I would think this game. Oh, go ahead.
and I was gonna say what I was about to say. What do you think of the rating of this game?
Okay, I hated the gameplay. Didn't like it at all. Which I need a good gameplay and a good lore. This game got saved by the lore. It had so much lore to it. Like obviously this. Like you get the good ending. They're all wearing purple, and we call it Evan is eating a bite out of Golden Freddy's head just for just for everything. They're all wearing purple and stuff like that. So I'd give this game an 8. Not because of the gameplay, because of the lore. What about you?
The lore, I would give it a because of lore, it would keep it up to a 7. It would have been a 6 if it would have been bad lore too. I don't like the game. I didn't really feel like I agree with a lot of the people. I felt like it was kind of a misstep for what they were trying to achieve. The only thing that somewhat kept it okay was the story was really good. But
Well, I love
yes,
lore. Oh my god.
yeah, a lot of stuff going on in the lore, and my man Springtrap is very relevant to this one too. At the very end, if you do it correctly, so you know he's yeah. But yeah, that one came out in December of 2021. So that was the last one so far. So we might have one here next 5 6 months. I don't know. Scott doesn't do it anymore. He retired from it, so he gave it to Steel Wool, and they might take they might do something every year or 2 or 3. Who knows? I'm not sure if they want to do the same 2 games, maybe 3 games a year like he was doing. But if it means the quality get even dumber, then I don't want them to do
I'd
that.
rather
So
I'd rather have it one game a year or even 3 years if the quality's back.
yep, absolutely. So yeah, let's go ahead and now discuss the lore. Let's stop talking about what we think of the games and let's just start talking about what we think of the story. So hey guys, we're gonna do this story together because it's that important, and we had the opportunity to do it. So here we are, and the story is extremely convoluted. It's all over the place. Each game does not go in the order chronological, so it's really confusing. So we're gonna try to do our best to kind of just go back and forth and try to just make sure everything works out perfectly.
Yeah, hopefully we can.
I know it's hard, and the thing about these games too, which is pretty cool, but it's also kind of frustrating at the same time, is a lot of people who played all the games didn't even ever see all these special little Easter eggs because they were just playing it and they're like, oh, I got like an eighth of the story, and you don't really care. It's just like a fun game to play.
Yeah.
But when you start playing all the mini games and you finish the right way they want you to play, then they give you these little fun little hidden codes and stuff like that.
Yeah. Beep, boop, pop.
So pretty much how the whole thing starts is you have 2 people. You have William Afton
And Henry.
and they are both wanting to make a business. Henry is kind of more of the business side of things, manager, and William would be more of the building animatronics.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
sir. And so they kind of decided to make this really awesome idea, and so this is probably late 70s or whatnot, and then late 70s, early 80s. So they start making the process, and what we see, which everyone knows of course, of the bite of 83, that's kind of around where these things started kind of happening.
Yeah.
And so pretty much how the whole thing starts, one of William's kids, Evan, is deathly scared of the animatronics. He's always crying.
Yeah.
And his older brother, Michael, is kind of a jerk, and he knows his younger brother, Evan, is having a lot of issues. So him and his friends decide to go ahead and dress up as the characters and then start messing with them.
Mm-hmm.
And can you explain what happened with that?
Okay, so basically, obviously, Michael dressed up as a fox, and his friend dressed up as like Chica and Freddy, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, what happened was Michael grabbed Evan, and he went over. And at this point, they didn't know that if water leaked onto the suits, it would lock. And he didn't know that, so he put.
Can you explain why that would be the case?
Huh?
We forgot to tell you that these 2 suits are called spring lock suits, and what happens is it was a really cool genius move, but it was faulty, and that is they had the animatronics in there, but if you crank something on the back of these two springtime suits,
It opens up.
it would open up, and then you could actually have someone get in and then play the character. The problem with that is if you start getting, like, you start sweating too much or whatnot, then the thing would malfunction and it would close. So then you have, as Kaden was saying, Michael's friends and Michael messing with Evan, the crying child, and they were bringing him up to Freddy. And then what happens?
And then he put it into his thing, and he was crying, and the water from his tears malfunctioned it, and his jaw just closed. And then he... He didn't die, he got put in a coma. But yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, he got put in a coma, and that's where you guys would see like the nightmare versions of it in the Five Nights at Freddy's 4. But what pretty much is happening is he's so scared of these things, and as he's on his deathbed, literally, he's actually seeing these things, the animatronics, but in nightmare mode. And funny enough, his dad is actually recording this whole thing from the little plush bear on the bed. Yeah, because he's a sick person. And so you see what poor Evan's going through. Yeah, so yeah, he's being recorded, and then right before he dies, the plush doll, what does he say to him?
He says, "I can feel you're broken, I will fix you." Which is an iconic line.
And that comes into play later on, way later on. So then we have that Evan sadly does die, and this is pretty much kind of the beginning of the supernatural version of the story. What happens is sadly his soul does not go to heaven like you would hope it would. It stays within Freddy Fazbear. So there's that. Bite of 83. So pretty much after this all goes down, it destroys the company for a while, and then of course, like everything, they decide to go ahead and just make a new one.
Yeah.
And this is where this would be considered Five Nights at Freddy's 2 in 1987. So pretty much what happens is they are opening up a new place, and I don't think, is it doing well at this point?
It would be doing very well actually, because they redid the animatronics to make them more kid-friendly. That's why Mangle come and play, and the old animatronics are gone, which, I don't know.
Yeah, they kind of had a more of a, like, you see that all the animatronics are very, very sweet looking and whatnot.
Friendly with the
because the first time we see these two, we see Springtrap Bonnie and Springtrap Freddy. They're in these little golden suits, and that's the one we were telling you where the Springtrap, where that you can open it up and get in. But then he stopped doing that, and they put it in these little security offices where no one knew about them, and then they just started to act like it didn't happen. And then all of a sudden, they come back, and was it Jeremy Fitzgerald?
Yep,
Jeremy Fitzgerald is the guy who takes the job as a night guard, and this is kind of where we see the story continue. And pretty much this is where we hear about the bite of 87. And what happens is he gets his whole frontal lobe bit off by Mangle. And Mangle's the one, he's a new character introduced to us, but technically he's one of the older characters in the timeline. But he was this really, really interesting thing where after a while of it, the kids would actually like take him apart and put him back together again. So he started turning into this big old pile of stuff. And he was kind of scary, but he was kind of, it seems like he's also kind of helping a little bit. Not Mangle, I'm thinking about Foxy. So he's kind of just, and he makes a weird sound too whenever he's getting close. So after Jeremy does his thing, what happens is he gets bit, and then they have to switch him. And so this is where we see Michael acting just like a normal person, because he's trying to find out what's going on. Sadly, because the thing about Michael is he killed his brother on accident, and ever since he killed his brother, it did so much damage to him. He even asked for forgiveness whenever you see that whenever Evan is in his coma, Michael's saying, "I'm sorry, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm sorry." And you can tell, like, he did damage, and he's not like his dad where he's a bad guy. So he pretty much the rest of the time we talk about Michael, he is trying to find out what's going on, pretty much. Trying to find his dad, trying to find his sister, so he can kind of fix the situation. But this is around the same time that they make another location, a sister location, And this is where we get Circus Baby. And she is extremely important because she was a new animatronic made specifically by William to understand how many kids are in the room and try to just make one kid only go to Circus Baby, so then Circus Baby can have this big old thing come out of her stomach and grab kids and then bring the kids inside. And what's pretty much been established in the all these things was, if William Afton has anything to do with killing kids, then automatically it kind of changes their soul goes into it. And then later on, which we'll talk about in a second, the puppet, which is very important too, that also is kind of the big reason. So yeah, pretty much that goes down. And what William did not want to happen was Circus Baby actually does the same thing to William's daughter, Elizabeth. And it kind of caused William to go crazy for real. But yeah, Elizabeth now and Evan, two of his kids, have died from his own makings.
That's sad. That is, wow.
So this is also the reason why Michael is now kind of has this whole adventure where he's just trying to resolve all these problems that his dad is causing. Mm-hmm. And it gets a little confusing later on. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But so at this moment, two of William's kids are dead. And what William does, which is really messed up, he actually goes and kills Henry's daughter. He does it in a really messed up way too. He gets in his car and he sees her in an alley as he's driving by, and he kills her. And this is where something that was made by Henry made a special puppet, the marionette, specifically to protect his daughter, because he started realizing William's got some shady things going on. So he made this puppet to kind of always track where his daughter is. So this puppet would be always in protective mode, and sadly did not make it in time and saw the dead kid laying in the alley in the rain and did not know what to do. So literally just laid over Elizabeth and then started kind of like shocking. And I think the rain started turning, destroying it. And the marionette kind of like, I don't know, died or whatnot. And then somehow the marionette was able to put Elizabeth's soul inside the puppet itself. So now you have a whole new set of troubles. And so when you start playing Five Nights at Freddy's 2, you see on the side, there's a puppet that you have to every once in a while wind up or else it'll get you. That is now part of the whole lore of two of William Afton's kids are now sadly possessed.
Yeah.
So at this point, Henry is just done. He is done with William, so he pretty much fires him. And this is when William starts kind of like just getting back in there and just starts messing with people without Henry's knowledge. And this is where we get the infamous William going in there, messing with all the animatronics. And as he's doing that, all of a sudden, all these souls from the animatronics are coming out. So he's sitting there freaking out going, what is happening? So he, like an idiot, thinks that the best idea is for him to run into the old Springtime Bonnie suit. And so he's all like laughing and they're like, oh, you can't get me, which is silly because yes, they can. And then from all this, oh, maybe you forgot, but guess what? Springtrap crush. So you see this really cool scene of William get destroyed and blood flies everywhere. And guess what? Now William is not only like a soul that's trapped in the animatronic, but he's actually like not dead, but he is dead. He's like a zombie. Yep. So it's like a different version. And this is kind of where the main idea of the antagonist comes. Because William at first was just a serial killer. Now he's actually an undead serial killer. And I don't know if you knew this about him, Kaden, but he always comes back.
That is pretty good, yeah.
I always come back.
So at this point, after William dies in the Springtime suit, they decide to go ahead and just hide that away. and then they kind of just block it so no one can come down there. It's like a little security area they just block. And then what happens is William is now stuck in the suit in this kind of cruel like hell for 30 plus years.
Yep.
And so pretty much for 30 plus years, nothing happens. At this time, Michael is still searching for like clues and whatnot. And Michael's already done a couple things where he actually goes to the sister location, and the circus baby is kind of guiding him throughout the game. And she's tricking him. And Michael does not. Michael, he kind of has a feeling, but I don't think he actually truly knows that that's actually his sister that's in there.
I don't even think that the baby knows that he's tricking her.
Right.
Because like when you're crawling through the vent, she knows what the guy's gonna say. Like, to crawl through that vent, not this vent, but if you crawl through that vent, Foxy will get you, or Funtime Foxy or whatever. But if you go through that one, it'll lead you. And basically at the end of the game, Michael will go into the scooping room, and Babe will say, like, this is the scooping room, idiot, or something like that. I forgot. And then...
I know, like, if you're going to keep on talking crap, why are you going to keep on listening to him? But yeah. So you go to this big old scooping room where... just to let you guys know, little thing, the scooping room is where they take the animatronics and they literally just rip out all their innards and stuff, and then they would make new ones and whatnot. So it's just a big old room where they would kind of just build, assemble, and then disassemble. And they pretty much led Michael into this room by the end of the game. Boss Baby did. Boss Baby? Circus Baby. Circus Baby pretty much did this whole thing. And you finally get in there, and she tells you to get in this machine, and you do, and then she's telling you as it's happening, like, they're going to take a part of you, but it's only going to hurt for a second, not a big deal. Yeah. So this machine literally claws and like takes out some of his guts. And it's very dark, and you're like, okay, that's odd. But then it gets odder than that. After this is all said and done, I think Michael gets out of there with innard in him, actually. Because as it's all happening, there's a animatronic called Innard, which is pretty much all of them, right? It sounds to me like it was kind of like there's like all like the 3 or 4 of them that they ended up kind of getting this big old group, and it's not Molten Freddy, but it's kind of like a big group of them that they ended up the animatronic kind of like replaced stuff, and it kind of became a big thing. And that animatronic, listen to this, everyone, it got inside of Michael, and then he left, and then life is normal again, but you start seeing this little mini game where he's good, he's happy, and all of a sudden he kind of turns into like a darker color.
Yeah, he's still happy.
Yeah, he's still happy, kind of like, and then all of a sudden he's like purple, and implying that he's decaying throughout this whole thing.
You won't die.
And he's not dead. And he's kind of like, he's being used as a meat puppet. Yeah. And then Innard kind of just goes, you know what? I'm kind of done with this guy. I'm going to go and get out. Mm-hmm. And so Innard left him. And then Michael's like, okay, I'm good again. So the whole thing was a little confusing in that. But this is kind of Michael's journey trying to figure out what happened. And in doing this, he's kind of now part of the whole thing. He's kind of like, he's just like his sister and brother. He's kind of dead. Just like his dad, he's kind of dead. And it's kind of this weird little thing. And then that's kind of how that whole thing ends. And then it's kind of vague, but they have this whole 30 plus years later, because this is all happening in the 90s. And then all of a sudden it all closed, they burn the place down, they close it down because people start realizing William was killing people, but they could never find the bodies or whatnot, and he was putting it in the animatronics, and that's where the smells and stuff like that. Yeah. And Michael himself was also smelling bad whenever he came as the employee, so they were kind of throwing these little Easter eggs like, oh, he's kind of dead too, just like his dad, just like his his brother and sister. So it's like this whole family's kind of cursed, and it's interesting, but kind of vague and not necessarily making 100% sense yet. Yeah. So the whole world finds out that there's some kind of myth behind this, and they're like, okay, well, that was weird. 30 plus years later, they decide to go ahead and make a new place off the myth that they were doing. And so they actually made a fright house to kind of show like the scariness of what it was. And little did they know that this fright house actually had one of the original suits with it. So AKA still haunted.
William.
So yeah, and this is the time, this is 2023. So in like 6 months, everyone. And pretty much what's going on this time is they're pretty much going off this like, oh yeah, come to our fright house and see all these old myths and everything. And they have all these old suits and whatnot. They're having fun with it. But then what they find out on the second night, because the first night nothing's really happening. On the second night, William Afton is found, and he's found in his old springtime Bonnie suit, all tattered up and disgusting looking. And they're all excited. The phone guy is all excited about it. He goes, hey, guess what? We found one of the originals. And little did they know that is now the reason that the horror story continues.
Yeah, which is crazy. FNaF 3 though, it ended with kind of showing him getting crushed.
Mm-hmm.
Like we obviously knew he got crushed, but it never showed it.
Mm-hmm.
But now it shows him at the 7th night, if you get the good ending. It shows him sort of laughing, but it has like a puddle of water. And you can just see the water drop and it just crushing. Goes to his knees, blood goes everywhere, like he said. But yeah, FNaF 3 was fun.
Yeah, and FNaF 3, the cool thing about that was it continues the story off of a legend. And I thought that was a unique idea because at the first few games, they were just kind of going off of the lore of what was going on at the time. And then all of a sudden, many moons later, these stories that we all know of are just fables. They're just kind of like, oh, old ghost stories that don't mean anything, even though they are true. And you're going to find that out. So when you start playing Five Nights at Freddy's 3, you see all these phantoms and whatnot. You don't see any of the old suits or whatnot. You only see like these phantom versions. And they haven't really 100% described how that officially happened. There's been a couple things saying someone put in the air where the oxygen is very low, so you'd be kind of seeing things. Someone said that maybe something put some kind of chemical in the air where you're kind of like all high on something and you're seeing things. But pretty much you're hallucinating. You're seeing all these weird versions of the old ones that we all know. But there's one that's actually there, and that is William Afton himself. But now we're calling him Springtrap because he's actually like the boogeyman inside this old disgusting suit. So it was a lot of fun for me to see that come full force fruition. And so you now have him haunting you in his haunted house.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of fun, and
he definitely did.
And it showed, this is where it shows a lot more lore to where you kind of start connecting pieces. And one thing that we were kind of having trouble with talking before we started is telling the story is kind of hard because the games were not made in the right order. They were made in an order where you had to say, okay, the first one was made in 93, the second one was made in 87, the third one was made in 83, and it's just kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do this the best job we possibly can, but it is difficult, my friends. So stop it. So we got that, and that would be Five Nights at Freddy's 3, and around this time, the next few games kind of take place around this time too.
Yeah.
So you'd have like 4 or 5 games that came out around this time that would be donated around this timeline as well. And the next one would be what?
Beef Simulator, correct?
Pizza Simulator? I think you're right. And what was pretty much, I guess, in some of these games, there's not as much lore as you'd like, but they do connect certain pieces that we were able to tell you. So we probably already told you certain things that happen in this, but we haven't been able to get to Pizza Simulator yet. But all these games have something like little Easter eggs that allow for our story to continue. And pretty much what you get is William is still terrorizing people. Michael is still looking for clues. And Henry, who for some weird reason this whole time kind of was just absent, decided to go ahead and start poking his nose out and trying to figure a way. And so we see a lot of cool things where Henry, on purpose, brings all these puppets together so he can try to burn them all at the same time. And this is where we see Michael is actually there too. And Michael is how would you explain it? Michael is now kind of realizing what's going on. And then you hear the narration from Henry at the end, and Henry's telling him, like, all right, so this is what's going on. I know that my daughter is the puppet. I know that you are possessed by the puppet. I'm sorry that you had to deal with this. You were a sweet girl and you don't deserve any of this. And everyone else, I know that you don't deserve this either. I'm sorry for everything that's going on. But you, talking to William, there's going to be a special place in hell just for you. And it was very good voice acting. It was very good like narration of what's going on. And it was a good idea of like explaining to us what's actually happening. And he says to Michael, he goes, hey, stranger, I don't know how you got here, but I can tell that you were supposed to be here and then you meant to be here. And I did make a way for you to get out, but you didn't take it, which tells me that you want to be here. So I think that Henry kind of knew what was going on with that being Michael. And so Michael, Evan, Elizabeth, William, and then all the other kids, technically this is the opportunity for Henry he made a trap and he burned them all. And we had the idea that, peace was among us. Was it?
No.
No, it wasn't. So after that story came out, people kind of got some of the closure they wanted, but then they made like 3 more games.
Mixing it. Why, dude?
So there was a couple more things with the newer games that kind of gives us a little story, and one being this really cool thing called Ultimate Custom Night, which was kind of the game itself was just kind of a cool idea for you to just have to play pretty much as every single character animatronic that you've seen in the past games. There's, I don't know, 60, 30, 40, 50 characters. 50 characters that you could kind of place in certain places, and it would affect that. But the cool thing about this was the story. This is after Henry sent William to hell. So this actually is hell for William Afton. So when you're playing this, the character you're William Afton. You're the bad guy. So you're almost kind of hoping that the animatronics get you. Yeah. And so whenever all these things are happening, you're like, oh, good, your own personal hell. This is awesome. But William Afton always comes back.
I always come back.
And then what happens after that, sir?
He goes to, what do you call it? We go to, the VR?
The VR, the Help Wanted, yep.
Help Wanted, and
which is kind of like the game, the one thing that I didn't mention, this game itself was kind of like a meta game, where it's almost saying like, oh, this guy, Scott Coffin, made these games, and now we're trying to do like this soft reboot, and then they actually were doing a soft reboot, and they were kind of like making fun of the idea of this like, they were pretty much saying, all these games before, they were just games, but this is real. And so you have this kind of reboot, but not reboot, and it's kind of a little funny play on things, but then you get this new story, and here it is, my friend.
So basically, you play this girl named Vanessa, and basically you have to get these small tapes throughout the game, and they basically say this game wasn't meant to be created at all, it was a glitch. And basically this game didn't have too much lore in it. The only purpose for this game was to introduce Bootstrap. And basically, it's so weird. So apparently these circuit boards got like mixed up or something happened, like melted and fused together or something like
There's
that.
still some code. There's still some code left in from whenever William Springtrap was created, and for somehow he got out of his personal hell from the code that was used to make the new game, and now he's part of the glitch itself.
Yeah, which is crazy. But yeah, Vanessa is trying to undo all of this, undo the code. But at the end of the game, kind of this mini game, we were kind of just running through. You open a lock, sort of like this, and you can just see the bunny's face just pop up like, "Hey," just like that. So yeah, that was definitely surprising.
It was surprising, and the reason why this is important is it kind of, I mean, it adds more confusion to the story, of course.
Yeah,
but what it does do is it kind of allows for almost like like all that we know already was kind of like the first stage, like phase 1 in the Marvel world. Now we're on phase 2, and this kind of changes things where Vanessa is the character you're playing, it's Vanny or whatnot, is the rabbit character, and she's kind of pretty much being manipulated by Glitchtrap, which is aka William Afton, or Springtrap, whatever you want to call him. He goes through so many different names. So he's able to kind of to mess with her and gets her to start doing all these things, and that is where she ends up becoming integral to the story after that. And you find out that she actually is going to be working at the next place that they build, which is where the new game Security Breach comes out.
And obviously, everybody's favorite characters from that. We got the crying child is Evan Afton. Glamrock Freddy is not William Afton, Michael Afton, and Vanessa is sort of the spirit of Elizabeth. I don't really.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's like one of those where MatPat actually kind of put together that way, where Vanessa and Vanny are the same person, and if you collect the tapes and whatnot, you find out that Vanessa has been seeing a therapist, and every time she sees a therapist, she tries to tell the therapist about what's going on with her. The therapists all end up dying, and because they get too close to the truth.
Yeah.
And then so you find out that the reason why that is because Glitchtrap, aka William, is overhearing all these things, and he's kind of pretty much manipulating Vanny or Vanessa to go ahead and do the duties of him.
Yeah.
And so then you see this new game start, which is very different aesthetically to the other games, where not only are you're actually like walking around, but all these characters that you used to know very well, a couple more different. They're now which you liked Freddy, but they kind of have a David Bowie kind of thing going on with their characters, where they're very, very 80s and very what's the word? Very rock star, yeah, and they're even called glam rock, which tells you right there. But this is where I like the story of this one specifically because, first of all, it expands on the Bite of 83 with Evan, as you mentioned a minute ago, where you're playing as a character named Gregory, and it's been pretty much put out there, almost for sure good to go, but not quite.
It's like
where
9.9%.
yeah, where Gregory is Evan, and he's a robot version of Evan, because we saw back in the day when William said, "I will rebuild you." And that's pretty much what we're getting. And we found out he kind of looks just like Evan and all this. They did all these similarities, and it's pretty much official. So you're playing as Gregory, aka Evan, and your protector, this is like the first time it's happened, but your protector is actually one of the animatronics, and that's Glamrock Freddy. And the reason why we find out, which is really kind of a beautiful message at the end, is Glamrock Freddy is actually being possessed by his older brother, Michael Afton. So, and for me personally, being a huge fan of the Terminator franchise, what I got from this was, you see Freddy pretty much anytime beforehand, and he's the bad guy. He's the bad robot trying to kill you. And now he's the protector. He's the one saying, I don't know why, but I feel like I need to protect you. And so I get Terminator 2 vibes from that, and I can't get enough of that. So what you're doing as Gregory the whole time is you're just pretty much hiding from Vanny, aka Glitchtrap, all these characters, and you're trying to collect all these things to allow for you to kind of find out more truth.
Yeah.
So the important thing that I got out of this game, I'm not necessarily as fan of much as the actual gameplay itself, even though it kind of is more my style. Yeah. Because they kind of like I said, they kind of took did a 180 with the franchise, and even though it was kind of refreshing, it was also kind of like, whoa, guys, you're kind of like entering like sci-fi kind of way and less horror. So I didn't like that as much, but I did like the idea that pretty much what they were trying to say in a roundabout way is this whole story revolves around family. And I love that. I love the idea Glamrock Freddy is Michael Afton, his protector, because he accidentally killed his brother in the Bite of 83. So now his whole goal when he was alive too, was pretty much just to right his wrongs. And now he's actually able to do that. And then you have Elizabeth, which is possessing Vanny, and so when you find that out, that's beautiful too. And then you have William, who's still around, and he's in the basement, and he's just still trying to just be a jerk. And then you have did I say them all?
Yeah.
So pretty much this is a family reunion. It's very important. And what happens if you do the endings correctly and whatnot, do all the funny little mini games, what you find out is you, as in Gregory, as in Evan, so Evan, Michael, and Elizabeth have peace. It shows them all sitting on top of a little grassy knoll on the hill, and they're all kind of just sitting there at peace, implying that pretty much they can just go to heaven or whatever. And then you at the very end, if you do it correctly, you get to see Springtrap. And by the way, this is the best he's ever looked. He is so scary looking. When he's running after him and you see this really beautiful cutscene, he starts running after him and he's actually scary looking. And then you see the blob come, which is pretty much a combination of all the other animatronics to get together, because you gotta, this is where it kind of gets confusing and whatnot. Every single animatronic, everyone hates William. They all hate William. They don't hate the night guards. They're not necessarily a fan of people wearing the color purple though.
Whoa.
Whoa. But the reason why is because purple in this whole thing is a representation of William Afton. You see him as the purple figure throughout the little mini games and whatnot. So we pretty much get the idea that purple is an evil color in these games, which is pretty cool. And that's why for our intro, which we wanted to add to the storyline, you'll notice that this happened in real time in 2022, my friends. This happened to where right before Springtime gets to that new Fright Fest whorehouse, we had to have poor Kaden over here kind of hold them for a night or two. And sadly, Mr. Kaden
didn't make it.
Was the bite of 2022. So you're now part of the lore, Kaden. Congratulations. And so hopefully that also means that he got to go to heaven too. But or maybe maybe you're still possessed by something. Who knows? Because technically Springtrap is still alive and Springtrap killed you, so
maybe I'm a robot.
Maybe you're Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2. Who knows?
Who knows what I am?
So pretty much it kind of the whole thing ends in a very positive manner. At least that's what the theory is, where yes, William is probably still alive because he always comes back. But unless they decide to go ahead and do a 180 again, hopefully we will never hear the words Michael, Elizabeth, and Evan scared or whatever, or haunted. We'll never hear that. We'll just hear, oh yes, they had to go through their times and tribulations, but now they're at peace. And then these people, the new story, that's where, phase 2 comes in.
Yeah, so basically this is my theory on all that. You said that they rest peacefully, which I do think they rest peacefully.
I hope they're peaceful.
But what I think they stayed in their animatronic forms because their dad is still out there, and obviously, like you said, all animatronics hate them, and even their kids don't like their father. So I think they'll be at peace when their dad is dead. Okay. That's my own theory.
And whenever we saw the blob grab Springtrap and kind of pull him up, almost like I'm about ready to destroy you. But then we don't see anything else. Yeah. So, which tells us that he is definitely still alive. And it kind of this is where it starts getting into the boogeyman thing, where a Freddy Krueger movie or a Jason Voorhees movie, where it starts kind of getting to the point where okay, well, is he ever going to die? How is he going to die? But that's one of those things, sadly, my friends, we are not there yet, because Security Breach just came out and showing all this new information, which gives us another 6 months, a year to try to figure it out. And I know that Scott Coffin, the creator of the whole thing, he wasn't really a part of Security Breach.
And that's why the game was so bad.
And that's probably why the game was so different. And
Yeah.
and I don't want to say bad, even though it kind of was.
Yeah.
But I will say that it was definitely a different direction,
Feel, yeah.
different feel, absolutely. And I didn't really find it scary.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, it does show this really cool little atmosphere of you actually getting to step inside of this big old area and walk around. But first of all, it was a very buggy experience.
Yes.
Very glitchy. And it wasn't because of Glitch Trap. It was because
Who
of
knows?
bad programmers.
Yeah, come on.
So it's one of those things. I'm not sure if Scott's done with the project, because the thing that really broke my heart was the reason why he retired was because of politics of things. He was putting out money in real life to certain candidates, political candidates, and half of the Five Nights at Freddy's population pretty much gave him the middle finger, and the other half said, gave him the thumbs up. And it was a bummer because it shouldn't matter anyways, but it got very toxic, and so he left the project, and now you have a company who's obviously changing the whole feel of it. A good way it kind of made me feel, if you watch the original Justice League movie, it was done by a different director because Zack Snyder sadly had a death in the family, and he had to leave the project. So then they hired Joss Whedon to come in and film the whole movie, and it was garbage because it wasn't the original direction. Luckily, in that situation, Zack Snyder came back and refilmed his part, and it was a way better movie. But I doubt they're going to be making Security Breach with Scott Coffin making it.
Yeah, I think Scott Coffin does always come back though. I mean, he's on that. He's the one that made that phrase, so I feel like he will direct the next game, just because I don't know. I just got a weird feeling about that. So, and hopefully he does, because the directors and producers, Steel Wolf, is that who does it?
Yep.
They got rid of all
Steel
blood.
Wool, I think.
Steel Wool. They got rid of all blood and gore. So it's
Oh, that's another thing too. And I guess if you look into the programming section, this is where like Matt Pat and everything found out the coding of the actual game. You'll find out that they actually on purpose deleted all these things that would have gore. And it's weird because the story is 100% Boogeyman story, but now they're trying to PG it up, which is ridiculous because the story starts off with animatronics killing kids, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh well, let's make this happy dappy, like instead of it being Return to Oz, it's the original Wizard of Oz, where it's all light and campy. I don't like when they do that kind of stuff, anyways. But here's another example of like Scott Coffin leaves the project, and the project gets all light and happy. So we'll see how it goes, and obviously they're going to be making more games and books because it's a money machine, but hopefully it doesn't destroy the story that has somewhat been established. And more importantly, we don't want to destroy the franchise, because as I told you many times, I was going into this research of this podcast reluctantly because I didn't really care. It was like, okay, I played a couple of the games. They weren't anything necessarily special to me. The atmosphere, everything was great about it, but I didn't get any of the story from it because I just played the games. And then all of a sudden, I know he's giving me this look like, how dare you? But then whenever I started doing the research on it, and I found out pretty much William Afton's whole story, it completely turned this into kind of a boring project for me, into I get to do like a Freddy Krueger kind of thing. So it was a lot of fun, and then I got to film this really nice intro with you that you and I will connect it to the canon, but no one else will.
Yeah. Oh, what do you call it? One of my favorite things from this game that they kind of hinted to, or I'd say two things. Obviously, you get the table of the mannequins all sitting. There's two girls, obviously the wife and the girl or the daughter, the two kids, and William Afton. And also, one of Chica's catchlines when she sees you is, "I will return you to your family," which is kind of referencing, the Afton family, which is really cool, I thought.
Yeah, because when you see the statues, it's good job bringing it up, by the way. The reason why that's important when you see it in Security Breach is it kind of just reminds you, like, this is the story. Yeah, a lot of people are going to be confused, like, okay, this is not really a story as much about the Aftons as we thought. But this kind of reconfirms that it is, because it shows one of the kids doesn't have a head, and then the dad, and then the mom, which we don't know anything about the mom, but we don't really need to.
Yeah,
And then
she's kind of sad.
and then Elizabeth, it kind of shows a little pigtail girl, and so it kind of is like proof of what we've been saying. And Security Breach does a very good job of adding new story to make sure that the old story all kind of makes sense.
Yes.
But like I said, the problem is the actual like direction they're taking it later on, because who knows what they do. But so far, before we get any, I mean this is the story, and so far that's pretty much what happens. Yeah, I mean it's like playing 9 games. And each game is like, oh, this one's set in 1983, and then the next game's set in 2022, and the next game's set in 1987, and then 1993. It's like, geez, guys.
Geez, come on.
I know.
Let's just do 1, 2, 2.
I know.
Let's do chronicle order.
Seriously. But the cool thing also is Scott Coffin was so awesome about this. He said, hey, I'm going to have these little, like Atari or Nintendo-like little mini games. Like if you die, instead of just getting, like a quick little like jump scare, you have to play this little mini game. If you do it correctly, more story is presented to you, and then more like, okay, less theory, more story, and then that pretty much everything we told you today is mostly story, and like I think less theory than anything else. So far, guys, that's the story for you, and next time a game or whatever comes out, maybe we can do a part 2 or whatnot. And we'll see what we're going to do it. But so far, guys, that's the story. We hope you like it. We hope you like the podcast. We had to do this up close and personal because
It's just too good.
it's too good. I didn't want to just like kind of, talking over each other with the 2 seconds of lag that we were. So I wanted to get next to you so we could actually tell you the story and try to go back and forth. But it is confusing, and we probably did miss some things that were somewhat important. But we got pretty much the meat and bones, which by even just saying the word William Afton, that's important enough right there. So
He always comes back.
he always comes back. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening to the awesome podcast, and it is awesome. And let us know what you thought. Kaden, thanks for coming on the show, buddy.
Thank you
You're awesome.
Thank you. Yes.
Absolutely, buddy. And thanks for helping me with the places where I was a little confused.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sitting there like going like, okay, game 2, then game 9, and then game 1. It's very confusing, and he had to help me with that many times over. So thanks, buddy.
You're welcome,
and we'll come up with the next topic very soon.
Hopefully so. I'm happy to be on here again.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, thank you, and have a blessed day, and take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.